UN envoy Hans Grunberg and the Bahraini foreign minister discussed the Yemeni crisis. The joint forces clashed with Houthi rebels south of Hodeidah city. The 7-year war deepens suffering of Yemeni people amid total government failure to provide basic services. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Shaza Abdelbaei. United Nations Special Envoy to Yemen Hans Grunberg met Bahraini Foreign Minister Abdul Latif Al-Zayani and discussed developments in Yemen. According to media sources, the meeting focused on efforts to stop the military escalation and resolve the conflict. The two parties stressed the need to support efforts of the United Nations in order to reach a negotiated solution to the conflict, establish peace, and ease the suffering of the Yemenis. In Hodeidah, 32 Houthi rebels were killed in battles erupted south of the city. Two military officials said clashes started when rebels tried to advance towards areas controlled by the joint forces. Under-Secretary of the Hodeidah Governorate called on the United Nations to declare the Houthi militias the violators of the Stockholm Agreement. He stressed that the Houthi violated the terms of the agreement, adding that the UN mission should take its moral and humanitarian responsibility as a result of Houthi violations against citizens. Violent confrontations continued between government forces and Houthi militia south of Ma'rib. According to a military source, the militia targeted positions of government forces. At the same time, coalition jets targeted reinforcements and military vehicles of the rebels on a number of fronts. The coalition reported killing of 80 Houthi fighters and destruction of 19 military vehicles in Ma'rib, Al-Bayda, and Al-Jawf during the past 24 hours. Three people were killed in an airstrike in central Yemen. A security official said an American drone targeted a car carrying a man suspected to belong to Al-Qaeda and his wife. One more drone killed 3 other people who came to rescue the wounded. In Al-Dala, units of the government forces carried out an operation against the Houthi militia. A military source said 7 members of the Houthi militia were killed and wounded during the operation. The war in Yemen has destroyed everything in the country. People suffer in different ways. More on the story is within this report.
7 years of war drove Yemen to be the worst humanitarian crisis in the world. Official figures say the conflict has so far caused the deaths of more than 12,000 civilians. Nearly 4 million people have been forced to flee their homes due to the fighting. Aid agencies say the current humanitarian needs go beyond their capabilities. According to the World Food Programme, there are more than 20 million who need humanitarian assistance. There are also more than 16 million who are food insecure. Nearly 2.3 million children under the age of 5 in the country suffer from acute malnutrition. As to the number of displaced people in Yemen, figures put it at nearly 4 million. The course of mines planted by Houthis is another bane to the Yemenis. About 2,000 civilians were killed. Among them, there were more than 500 women and children. More than 2,000 were mutilated out of mines' permanent phantom.
Houthi militia has admitted the killing of a number of its fighters. Houthi media said those killed among the rebels held military ranks and were killed in Ma'rib. Houthi rebels continues its war against Yemenis in areas under their control. They keep seizing and removing private properties and storm houses of their political opponents. More on the story is within this report.
Houthi militia continues its crimes against citizens. They aim to loot and confiscate the homes and property of civilians who do not agree with its terrorist ideology, after forcing them to flee and leave their city by force of arms. This action is part of a series of daily violations by the rebels against civilians in areas under its control. The militia has attacked and confiscated properties of 35 Yemeni MPs who back the government. The head of parliament stated that the Houthis have prosecuted dozens of MPs and raided their homes in Sana'a and other areas in northern Yemen. Speaker of the parliament al-Barakani urged the UN envoy to persuade the Houthis to stop their absurd trials of their opponents and to return confiscated properties. The Houthis stormed the homes of the prosecuted figures, confiscated their properties and seized their bank accounts. The Yemen news agency added al-Barakani submitted a file to the UN envoy containing information about Houthi abuses, including attacks on MPs' homes, muzzling freedom of expression, looting humanitarian aid, confiscating newly printed banknotes, and shelling densely populated areas. Hundreds of civilians have been killed since late 2018, when the government and the Houthis signed the Stockholm Agreement, which was designed to end hostilities in Yemen's western province of Hodeidah. It seems like the Houthi militia is following no rules, obligate to no agreements. They're just killing civilians and seizing their properties in the process of seeking power in the country.
Coming next. International Diabetes Day, while Yemenis' well-being is devastated due to poor medical facilities.
اضطرينا نحن نغادر من ذي وزحنا.
الله يستبدلكم يا محوية الله يستبدل.
Welcome back. A Yemeni emergency committee discussed with UN humanitarian coordinator David Greasley the plan to maintain safer oil tanker. The meeting addressed the risks posed by the tanker and the potential threat of a possible oil spill in the Red Sea region. On his part, Greasley indicated that the United Nations is working hard to avoid Safer's disaster by trying to empty the tanker of its contents. A Yemeni human rights organization confirmed that the Houthi militia burned a religious library south of Ma'rib. The organization warned against the consequences of Houthi actions. According to sources, the Houthi militia has introduced religious ideology within the public schools curriculum as to control the youth. Domestic gas crisis continues in the city of Aden. Local sources in the city said the price of the gas cylinder rose again to more than 15,000 riyals. Sources confirmed that the owner of the gas stations raised the price for the third time in 2 weeks, after the price of a cylinder was about 10,000 riyals. A total public anger overcomes Ebian city because of high prices. People cannot secure the basics of life. More on the story is within this report.
Abiyan Governorate, like other Yemeni governorates, where food supply and consumer goods exceeds the market demand, citizens are unable to provide basic life needs, in spite of weak purchasing power and insane rise in prices, due to the historical collapse of the Yemeni rial. This made citizens to call on local authorities to put an end to the crumbling economic and living situation.
The national currency is collapsing rapidly. Every day, the currency falls, increases. The insane rise in prices has killed Yemeni citizens. We call on the government and the president to make an urgent solution for currency collapse and the rise in prices because citizens are worn out.
Where are you, the government? Where is the president? High prices tire us. There is no need to speak in formal language because whatever we have learned has gone due to the situation. We suffer from poverty, which has reached an unreasonable extent.
Prices increased by more than 200% in the past 2 years due to the collapse of currency, where $1 exceeded 1,500 riyals, while the Saudi riyal exceeded 400 Yemeni riyals. This affected to a major degree the life of the Yemeni citizen, who is unable to face the insane rise in prices amid low wages, lack of salary, and absence of government role in controlling merchants' greeds, as well as finding real solutions to alleviate the suffering of citizens.
People in Abiyan suffer from two things: rise in foodstuffs and the absence of the role of the government.
The situation, as you know, is miserable. The citizen bear the burden of the life conditions, currency drop and high prices day after day.
Abiyan Governorate, and specifically Zanzibar, witnessed in the last period a strike by shop owners in protest over currency collapse and failure of local authorities to carry out their responsibilities to mitigate the impact of the rise in prices. Also, high transport prices made students unable to go to educational facilities. This requires the governments to remedy the situation before it got out of control again.
While the world celebrates the International Diabetes Day, the well-being of millions of Yemenis is on the test. This gets even harder with the collapse of health facilities. More on the story is within this report.
On World Diabetes Day, patients in Yemen are increasing significantly due to war and displacement in light of the collapse of the health situation. Reports dealing with the health situation of Yemenis indicate a deteriorating health situation amid the current conflict conditions. The collapsing healthcare system in Yemen has left massive gaps in detection and treatment of non-communicable diseases and conditions that are typically treatable, such as diabetes, high blood pressure, kidney disease, and cancer, become increasingly deadly in the conflict-affected and low-resource setting of Yemen. The vast majority of the estimated 9% diabetics in Yemen depend on daily doses of insulin. Many of them have had their treatment hampered by the conflict in Yemen and restrictions on getting treatment into the country. Diabetics in Yemen live in a state of anxiety and fear due to the lack of insulin. Dr. Opad al-Zuhaili, based in Michigan, commented on the scale of non-communicable diseases among the patients he treated in Yemen. Most diabetic patients I treated during my mission in November 2019 had severely uncontrolled diabetes and poor adherence to diabetic diet. More than 1 million people in Yemen with non-communicable diseases are unable to access life-saving treatment. Over the last 5 years, the health system in Yemen has collapsed. Only half of Yemen's pre-war health facilities are functional, and many of the functional facilities lack adequate medical equipment and supplies. The WHO has documented 142 attacks on medical facilities in Yemen since the conflict began in 2015. There are no doctors in 18% of districts across the country. Nationally, there are only 10 healthcare workers for every 10,000 people. As a result, only 20% of health facilities are capable of treating chronic conditions such as diabetes. The situation is dire for all Yemenis. When the crisis in Yemen ends, when its economy improves, and when the living conditions improve for citizens, only then we can have hopes that the health situation will improve one day in a country divided by a common war.
The National Committee Against Coronavirus announced 6 new cases of the COVID-19 in 3 governorates. Committee officials said on Twitter that 3 cases were recorded in Lahj, 1 in Aden, and 1 in Al-Dala. Also 2 deaths were recorded plus 7 recovered cases. With the current updates, the total confirmed cases are 9,918, including 1,923 deaths and 6,623 cases of recovery. Here's a reminder of the main headlines. The UN envoy Hans Grunberg and the Bahraini foreign minister discussed the Yemeni crisis. The joint forces clash with Houthi rebels south of Hodeidah city. The 7-year war deepens suffering of Yemeni people amid total government failure to provide basic services. This is the end of the news. Thank you for watching.